di di da. Ay 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 di di ay ay di di da. Die. Ay 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 die die ay ay di die die di die dum. Ay die 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 di die die. Oh, hello everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for our shir today. We are here on Parsha Kedoshim, and we are learning for Lis Neshama, the three holy Jews who were murdered yesterday as Yom Ha'atzmaut finished in Eretz Yisrael in Elad, and it should be a Lis Neshama for them and a refuah shleima for the cholim, those who were injured. It's very, very difficult when such a joyous occasion is marred and beyond the scope of what we're going to do today, but hopefully maybe we can address that idea. For now, our job is to learn, do mitzvot, and support those who have been impacted by this. And we're going to do that with some Sfas Emes today. And this Sfas Emes is from, we're going to start with the Sfas Emes from Tafresh Lamed Vav. This is his second. He gave, I guess, maybe 4 speeches that Shabbos. And this is from the second one. It says, Berashi. So remember, the beginning of the parsha is Kedoshim to you. You should be holy. And this whole parsha is connected primarily with mitzvot, which are ben adam l'chaveiro, which are between people. Right? The famous one, V'ahavta l'recha kamocha, right? How you should love your fellow as yourself. But that's just one of many, many mitzvot that don't have to do with what we do for God, so to speak, or towards God, but about how we interact with people. And he says, She'al yedei hayira yecholim lekayim diburim hamesurim lelev. So there's a mitzvah in this week's parsha that you're not supposed to oppress another with words, right? It's called onaas devarim, is the Hebrew. And right, if you were to let's give an example. So Berashi davar masor libo shaladam nemar bo v'yiras alekecha. So what's Rashi talking about? What is oppressing people with words? We're not talking about right here specifically emotionally inflicted damage. Yes, that is bad, and that's covered in other areas. This is specifically a kind of oppressing somebody with words, which is like this. As Rabbi Besser explained, he said, let's say you're a real estate person, and somebody asks you about a certain, deal, certain, thing. Oh, that, I'm really interested in it. Look at that deal. It looks like a good deal, And he says, I think of, paying, $700,000 for that. But the guy doesn't know that you already have an offer in on that house for, $650, right? And he doesn't know that you're interested in it, and he's asking you because that's your thing, real estate. So he says he wants to know, this is a good deal. So you say to him, it's not worth 770. It's not worth. Maybe it's worth 600. Right? You mislead the person because you have a vested interest in them in them losing out. So that is one of the ideas of onas dvarim, which is intentionally misleading people. It is a complete avera. It is a intentionally misleading people is a terrible, terrible thing. And it's unusual because normally we associate, harm, that there's some kind of obvious immediate damage, right? Shane tachat chain, right? You hit a person, you knocked out a tooth, now you got to pay them for the tooth, right? We associate harm so often with very tangible things. But what's the harm? What's the harm? Where's the harm? In other words, one could say, right? Where's the harm? I wanted to buy it. I didn't want him to buy it. So I told him it's a bad deal and I got it. Did he lose out? He still has the money in the bank, right? He still has the resources. It's not like I took his money and, and ran away with it, right? I didn't touch his money. I didn't touch anything. I just said it's a bad deal so I could get the deal. Seems like that guy, I'm just a smarter businessman, one might think. I outsmarted him. He didn't know I was involved in negotiating over the same property. So a person could convince themselves of that. They could think, I'm not harming anybody. Nobody lost any money. I got a good deal and I'm going to make money. And then I'm even going to give a share to tzedakah. I'm even going to give some of that money to tzedakah, right? I got a good deal. So you could really convince yourself that misleading people. Now, let's take it outside of real estate. What about it comes to something else? What about it comes to some other matter about misleading people? But you feel it's for a higher purpose or for some other benefit that you are going to get. And Hashem says, this is all wrong. We can't do that. And he says, says, you have to have Yira Shamayim, you have to have a sense of fear of heaven, and then you can avoid, this kind of intentional misleading of people. Amnan, he says, however, Gam came lifrosh she'ela hamitzvah satulim belev. He says, but there's an interesting, I'm going to call it a little bit of a paradox. It's not his words. So this mitzvah of not, not misleading people, and odnas dvarim, or this concept, this has to do with something which is tali belev, he says. Right? What does it mean? In other words, it's in your heart, you have to make the right decision. And he says, when you use your heart to make the right decision, then you merit to have more Yirah Shamayim. So again, that's the paradox, right? You say, but wait a minute, if I had Yirah Shamayim, I'd make the right decision. But actually, what he's saying is that through keeping the mitzvahs of that are tolu belev, the things which have to do with our heart, and through keeping those mitzvot, then we get Yirah Shamayim. Then we develop a sense of awe, awe of Hashem. Ki kol mitzvahs b'maaseh misaken maaseh adam. Every mitzvah that we do has the ability to fix the actions of a person. You want to be a better person in a certain area, focus on the mitzvot that have to do with that area. You want to be more generous, so with this you have to focus on those mitzvot. But also when it comes to literally our physical sense, you want to have you want to judge people more favorably. You want to have better thoughts. You want to Ivdras Hashem b'simcha. So you have to focus on those things which are connected to that level, that connection in your body. Right, those things. So that one. So anything which is tali b'machshavas alev, anything which is connected to, right, is dependent on the thoughts of our heart. Literally, right? What are we feeling? Misaken libo she'adam. This fixes our heart. So anytime you work on the mitzvahs that have to do with the heart, they're going to fix the heart. He says, I heard from my grandfather, Vayikra es amisoi vayikra me'elokecha she'ayidei shmiras anas dvarim zoichem li'ira. He says, right, through being careful about the mitzvah of onas dvarim, not oppressing people with words, you gain yiras Shamayim. Uba emes shnei perishus emes ki mashachas of shara mitzvah. So that was that paradox, right? So that the reward for a mitzvah is a mitzvah. And there's a remez to remind us that we're starting to learn Pirkei Avos these weeks. How important Pirkei Avos is for developing a better spiritual life, and also better relations with other people, and connect ourselves with Hashem. So schar mitzvah, the reward of a mitzvah is a mitzvah, and that could go on a whole other discussion about that. But i.e., when you practice, when you're careful about anos davarim, and when you give advice to people, and you're giving that with no ulterior motive, and you daven to Hashem that I'm giving the right advice, so then the reward is, right, the yiras Shamayim, which is it's a mitzvah. And certainly through the depth that is the here omek hayira, meaning like the not just yiras Hashem, but the deep awe of Hashem. Then you can even do a better job at upholding the other mitzvot which are dependent on our hearts. L'chein schar mitzvah hayira, and therefore that's why the reward of this mitzvah is further yiras Shamayim, is further awe of Hashem. K'dei l'kayim ha'idei hamitzvos b'toiv yoser can learn them, and then you can do the other mitzvahs better, right? So not only are you able to fulfill this mitzvah, but you can fulfill other mitzvot, and you have a much that are tali b'lev. Let me see if I can round up this idea. When the more we refine our actions and our thoughts and our heart through the performance of mitzvot, then we can do those mitzvot and other mitzvot even in a better way in the future, right? It's like we'll use the analogy of the person who's trying to lift weights, right? So you work on the weights, and each time that you exercise that muscle, it's strengthened, and then you can do more with that muscle, and more and more and more. But it takes exercises. So with these things too, right? So the first time it comes to you, as someone's asking for advice, and you make it this, and you say something without any, trying to remove your own ego from it, trying to remove your own vested interest in their decision, right? So that strengthens your heart to make the right decision again. And next time you'll even be better at it, and better at it, and better at it. So that's my understanding, please God, of the Sfas Emes on Kedoshim to you, Tafresh Lamed Vav. Holiness is not, in Judaism, holiness is not being removed. It's not being removed from society. Holiness is being integrated in society and turning our society and our hearts to Hashem. But another thing that he says about Kedoshim later on, two other things we have to add, because I just have to round out the topic today a little bit. One is that Kedusha, that the highest level of Kedusha, he talks about later, a few years later, he talks about how it was only possible when there was Jewish unity, right? When all the Jewish people were together. So for example, at Har Sinai, right? When we were all together at Har Sinai, and he says, Kedoshim to Parsha Zoi Nemra Bekahal. He says that this Parsha was given over to all the Jewish people, right? This was given to everybody. And that is a clue that Kedusha is connected to a kahal, to being together with others. You only can really get to those higher levels of Kedusha if you are you include yourself in a much greater a klal, in a much greater. You have to attach yourself and bittul yourself. Really, is that you are part of a much larger entity. So that's one thing to remind us that you can't be a holy hermit in Judaism. That's you're getting off easy. That doesn't qualify. And the other thing to remind us what he says at the very beginning, his very first Torah on Kedoshim, which we've learned before, and just to remind ourselves that Kedoshim to you is a haftacha. It's a promise. It's not just a directive. That's the simple meaning. Kedoshim to you, you have to be. The Midrash teaches us, Kihu haftacha gamken. This is a promise. Because if you think about it, how can a human, a flesh and blood, be holy? We have so much. We're so attached to our physicality and all the things it takes to make a living and earn and eat and sleep and all these things. How can we really be holy? One might think, and asceticism is not an option in Judaism. He says, because when you attach yourself to me, when you attach yourself to me, Hashem says, then you achieve holiness. So that is it's a promise that if you attach yourself to Hashem, you elevate yourself and achieve holiness. I want to again wish everybody an awesome Shabbos. There's so much to learn, so much we can do, and please God, we'll be together in Shamayim, in Shamayim, peace and good health.